When I see my daughter, it's absolutely amazing. She's beautiful. I can't deny that she's created by God. It's hard for me to accept that the laws still say it's okay for mothers just like me to end a precious life like hers, simply because we want to. The pro-life leaders I've talked to seem to think that making abortion illegal for women would be a bad thing. And it seems like most of the pro-life movement agrees. But is it?
My name is Jenna Cross, and I'm the Executive Director at Alliance Family Services, which is an organization that has 2 clinics and a maternity home and a mobile clinic.
My name is Casey Hunter. I work at Alliance Women's Clinic, and I have the opportunity of doing the ultrasounds on our ladies that come in.
How does a pregnancy resource center with more of an abolitionist goal towards ending abortion differ or operate uniquely from maybe a more pro-life mentality?
Well, I think that one of the things that distinguishes us is our laser focus on we want to reach the abortion determined. We have all the support services available. We want to help those moms, but our priority is this is a life or death situation. We want to be a place of rescue. Yes, we care about the mother, but we can't actually put those on the same playing field. Like one has difficult circumstances maybe and will help, but one is actually at risk of being gruesomely murdered. And so there is a priority for that preborn life. We need to be the voice for that baby. And when we're doing ultrasounds, many times we'll think, I might be the only one besides this mother that ever sees this child alive.
That's a heavy thought.
It's a heavy thought.
Jenna told me that of the abortion-determined women they see at their clinics, even after providing them a detailed ultrasound, extensive information, and offering lots of resources, the majority still go on to abort their children.
Yeah, the 2 solutions that are supposedly going to fix it is education, which we just know from experience isn't the case, and money.
It's a heart problem,
Yeah.
really. It's a heart problem. It's like
Yes.
if someone has an abortion planned, there are organizations that will write them a grant.
Yes.
Will give them money, they'll pay their rent.
Yes.
And they're turning it away. They're saying
Yes.
finances is the reason, but
Yes.
then when you offer them money, they still aren't changing their mind.
Yes, that is what ultimately led me to explore abolitionism. It was abolitionists that were actually talking about real solutions and not saying the things like, well, we just need to provide more education, because we are discovering in our clinics, we're giving them all the education that they could possibly have, and we still only have a 35% change minds rate. So we're thankful for those 35% that changed their minds and for those lives saved, but that's 65% of the time they have every bit of information. I mean, it's all RNs, and we have an advanced practice nurse that are giving this education. What other education could we possibly provide?
You would call yourself now an abolitionist.
Yes.
Can you kind of tell me your journey to that label for yourself?
What made me really start looking into it was what happened in Louisiana. So I heard about this potential equal protection law that was a possibility of passing in Louisiana. And when I saw the letter signed by all of these pro-life organizations and church denominations saying, we don't want this isn't pro-life, it shocked me. I thought, are you kidding?
I'm going to dig into this letter, but first, let me back up a bit. Jenna only heard about abolitionism recently, but according to Jeff Durbin, the abolitionist movement had been filing bills of equal protection since 2016.
One very important bill came up from some Christians in Oklahoma with Senator Joseph Silk. It was a bill of abolition, a bill of equal protection, in a state where it should have passed. And amazingly, we heard from our friends and people that were on the ground that it was being stopped by the establishment, the pro-life establishment in Oklahoma. They were stopping it. It wasn't the pro-choicers. It wasn't the pro-aborts. It wasn't those who are for abortion. It was the pro-life leaders that were stopping this bill of equal protection and abolition.
I wanted to get to the bottom of this, so I met up with the bill's author, former state senator Joseph Silk.
Yeah, it was in 2016, so I was elected to the state senate in 2014, and I was 27 years old when I got elected. Went in kind of guns a-blazing. You know, abortion was at the top of my list of things to take care of. So I found some, right out of the bat, I found some legislation from, I think it was Kansas. So I took it and I was like, at that time it was the strongest pro-life bill in the country. Some abolitionists came and met me in my office and kind of went through the difference between pro-life bills and the pro-life movement and an actual abolition or equal protection bill and movement. And it was, within 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, it makes sense legally and biblically, and I mean everything. And so we turned that bill into a full-fledged abolition equal protection bill.
If it becomes law, Bill 1118 would allow for no exceptions to abortion, no age-related distinctions, and calls the procedure a homicide.
What was it in that conversation with the abolitionists that kind of turned your mind towards?
So the biggest difference, so here's this pro-life bill, and they said it doesn't offer equal protection. They're like, so it protects these babies, but it actually legalizes the murder of these. And it was as simple as that. And they're like, but here's an abolition bill. And if we could do this, where we treat unborn children like we treat everybody else.
No matter the gestational
No matter
age.
where they are, they're like, that's actual equal protection. And that was the biggest kicker.
Pro-life laws make it seem so complicated to protect babies.
Senate Bill 157 has been nicknamed the Born Alive Bill.
Ban abortions after 6 weeks.
12-week ban.
Fetal heartbeat bill.
Pain capable, trying to stop women from crossing state lines.
Bans the procedure after 8 weeks.
Take away their licenses.
The heartbeat bill.
Ban on abortion drugs sent by mail.
But the abolitionists were saying just treat unborn children the way we treat everybody else. Same laws. Simple.
I was like, oh, this is a really, really good bill. This is what the state needs to do. So I went up there very naive on that Monday morning. We drove up there and I was like, this is awesome. Everybody's going to be so excited because the Oklahoma State Senate, majority Republican, majority pro-life, they're going to be super excited about this bill that I created that actually provides equal protection to everybody. And so went up there. We start session and my bill's not coming up to be heard.
Senator Silk says he's aggravated. He's frustrated that Bill 1118 hasn't even gotten a hearing yet on the Senate floor. He now has less than 24 hours to fight for the idea that life begins at conception.
And I'm like, well, I wonder what's going on. So I finally went up and talked to the floor leader and I said, hey, when are you gonna pull my bill up so I can, we can debate, deliberate? And I could tell immediately he was very angry because I hadn't talked to him, and he was like, boy, you sure stirred up a hornet's nest with that one. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, your bill's not being heard, and we're going to be having a lot of talks about this. And I was at a loss. I was like, here you have a bill that just treats all children equally. It provides equal protection. Why in the world would we not want to hear it?
Did you hear anything from pro-life organizations?
Yeah, from the get-go, Tony Lowinger, who's a big pro-life advocate here in Oklahoma, he's kind of the go-to. He's actually on the board of National Right to Life. He's a lobbyist, pro-life lobbyist. Well, he was actively going around lobbying state senators to not let that bill be heard. He said, we cannot let that bill be heard. And it was kind of funny at one point, it was a couple of years later on a different abolition bill, because we ran it for, I think, 5 years. A letter, a handwritten letter from him to another senator was written about the abolition bill, saying, do not hear. And I still have the letter. Leadership got really upset that I ended up with that, but I didn't steal it. It just happened to end up on my desk. But it shows that, in his own handwriting, he was actively going around lobbying to not even have that bill heard. And he was very effective at it.
So the leader of the Oklahoma chapter of Right to Life handwrote a letter to another senator that said, do not let this bill be heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you said that you put an abolition bill forward for 5 years. Can you just at least summarize kind of the trajectory of how those went?
Once I converted from pro-life to abolition, there was absolutely no going back. And so the year, even though it didn't get a hearing, the next year we put it forward again. and it did not get a hearing. And then it started to gain some traction statewide the following 2 years with Senate Bill 13, which actually got some co-authors. So I made a motion, and it wasn't even a vote. It was a procedural vote. It wasn't a vote up or down on the bill. It was just a vote
just to hear it.
Let's just talk about it. So I made that motion. They knew it was coming. They were not happy at all. So they tabled it, which is final action, which means it was dead.
I move to withdraw Senate Bill 13 from committee and have it placed on general order.
Madam Floor Leader.
Move to table.
Close the roll. The motion to table by a vote of 38 ayes and 4 nays, I declare to have passed.
So they killed the bill that day, and that was 2020. And I requested a roll call vote, so we had everybody on record. So will you even hear this bill, or will you not? And only 4 senators voted in favor of just making the bill eligible to be discussed. It was quite the debacle for sure. I made a lot of friends that day, let's just say that. But people hear that story. A lot of people have heard that, and they absolutely cannot believe it. And there was several state senators who lost their reelections because of that.
I learned that one of those senators who didn't vote for the abolition bill was challenged in the next election by an abolitionist named Warren Hamilton.
So you ran openly as an abolitionist of abortion?
I did. I ran for office, was elected in 2020, and I ran on the overriding goal is that if we're going to ask God to bless America, then we cannot continue to slap him in the face by killing his children. I filed a bill that basically says we're not going to dance around this issue any longer. We're going to abolish abortion. It got a hearing in the Health and Human Services Committee.
Senator Hamilton, you are recognized to explain the provisions of Senate Bill 495.
This bill, the consequences of this are life and death, literally life and death. And then it got voted down unanimously by a majority of Republican legislators that were in there.
I received 0 ayes, 10 nays, declare the bill to have failed.
Apparently, that's how it went for years, and not just in Oklahoma. As I looked into it, I found out the same thing had happened in other states. From 2016 through the first part of 2022, pro-life legislators urged by pro-life organizations killed 23 bills to abolish abortion filed in 9 Republican-controlled states. At the time, many assumed they were killing the bills because of Roe v. Wade, since most considered Roe to be the law of the land. But then something happened.
We have huge breaking news tonight, and I can't even believe I'm going to tell you what I'm about to tell you. But in a highly, utterly unprecedented leak from the Supreme Court, an initial draft majority opinion showing the Supreme Court striking down Roe versus Wade.
Once the Supreme Court indicated that they were about to overturn Roe, I thought things would change. It seemed like a new day. Roe was going to be dead. So now pro-life legislators and pro-life organizations were going to support equal protection bills, right? Just days after the Dobbs leak, they got their chance.
We had the historic moments just last year in Louisiana where we had a bill of abolition and equal protection not only make it to hearing, which they try to kill it so it never gets a hearing in every state we go to, but it actually got the hearing, and it went through the hearing, and it passed overwhelmingly.
House Bill 813 is also called the Abolition of Abortion in Louisiana Act of 2022. It would change language to consider a fetus a person.
I learned that Louisiana Pastor Brian Gunter was instrumental in bringing this bill to State Representative Danny McCormick and getting it heard.
So can you walk us through House Bill 813, how all that laid out and how it ended?
This was a bill that was going to require legislators in Louisiana to take a hard vote. Do you really want to end abortion or not? I went to this meeting of pastors early one morning, and we had just introduced our bill. And I start talking to them about the bill I'm promoting, and of course, we're going to need your help. Providentially, Ben Clapper arrived, and we met as I was leaving the meeting. He was arriving. That was when he made a plea to me to pull House Bill 813. that he felt it was a bad bill.
Did he say why?
We can't do this now. We can't defy Roe. We have to abide by the Supreme Court. We're about to overturn Roe. We need to wait another year. Next year, I'll support the bill. He said, he agreed with what's in it, but it's the wrong timing. And when Ben asked me to pull the bill, I said, Ben, that'll only cost us 7,444 more lives of innocent children. And I can't do that. And so I basically told him I'm moving forward. So let me tell you what HB 813 is. This is a bill to immediately end abortion in the state of Louisiana. No compromises, no more waiting. Children in the womb are being murdered every day by abortion in this state.
We will ask for a call of a vote.
Representative McCormick?
Yes.
Yes. Representative Hodges? Representative Muscarello? Yes. Representative Nelson? Representative Seabaugh?
Absolutely.
Yes. Representative Villio?
The bill passed in the House Criminal Justice Committee last week 7-2, pushing it forward to the House for a vote.
And that was the first time in American history that any legislative body had passed a bill of abolition, even though it was just a committee. I mean, that had never been done before.
So where do you go from there?
Yeah, so in the week between the committee passing HB 813 and the vote on the House floor, I began contacting essentially every member of the House of Representatives in Louisiana who considered themselves pro-life. I kept a sheet, and I had 72 out of 105 members in the Louisiana House of Representatives had told me that they were going to vote to pass HB 813. And in the last few days, everything began to change. I remember someone forwarded me a press release from Louisiana Right to Life saying that they were opposing House Bill 813 because it would criminalize women who had abortions. And I had this sinking feeling in my stomach. I was driving and I pulled over on the side of the interstate, and I remember I just read this press release and I was like, they're saying that abortion should be legal for women. They can't mean that. And I remember I was on the side of I-10 in Baton Rouge, and I was just sitting there like, there's no way that they would say this.
Several prominent pro-life groups, including Louisiana Right to Life, oppose the bill, believing it's too extreme to criminalize women. And Governor Edwards, who typically avoids commenting on bills in process, said, I felt I had to join my voice to the chorus of pro-life organizations against House Bill 813.
And House Bill 813 is set to be debated on the House floor tomorrow afternoon.
The morning of May 12th, when the bill was going to be voted on, when we arrived at the legislature, I noticed that there was this letter that all the legislators had either in their hands, and they were reading it as they were walking through the rotunda into the House chambers. And it was also on the desk of the state representatives where they were going to vote on HB 813 that afternoon. And the letter was authored by over 70 pro-life organizations and signed by them, including Louisiana Right to Life, urging all state lawmakers in America not to pass any bill that would make it a crime for a woman to have an abortion.
The letter. This is the one that Jenna had mentioned earlier.
When I saw the letter saying, we don't want this isn't pro-life, it shocked me. I thought, are you kidding?
This letter, published just hours before the vote on the Louisiana Equal Protection Bill, was signed by National Right to Life, Americans United for Life, Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, March for Life Action, the Southern Baptist Convention, ERLC, and 72 others. In total, 83 pro-life leaders signed the letter on behalf of 77 pro-life organizations.
And here you had 70 plus pro-life leaders signing a letter.
Many of them I knew personally.
And it's saying that they would never support a bill criminalizing women. But what did that have to do with HB 813?
Yeah, HB 813 didn't criminalize women. HB 813 criminalized the act of murdering a baby.
No matter who it is.
Yeah, no matter who it is, whether it's the abortionist, whether it's the pimp who's pressuring a sex trafficked woman to have an abortion, whomever it is, whoever is willfully participating in the act of prenatal homicide, they would be punished under law, just like if anyone murdered you or I. I mean, it shocked me because all these organizations that I had been working with were now signing a letter that said, don't pass any law that makes it a crime for a mother to kill her child in the womb.
Even if she willingly and intentionally wanted to kill her child.
Yeah. No exceptions. They don't want, it's very clear, the pro-life establishment, and they made it clear in this letter, they believe that any woman should be able to kill any child in her womb for any reason at any time without any consequences whatsoever under the law.
And Brian wasn't the only pastor trying to counter what this letter said.
More than 75 so-called pro-life organizations wrote and signed an open letter encouraging all legislators and state legislatures not to pass such a bill. And I was deeply disappointed to see included in those more than 75 organizations the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention, who were saying, no, this is not something that should be done. We should not have bills like this. And that grieved me deeply. I wrote letters about that. I tried to communicate directly to certain people whose names were on that open letter. And I think that those who call themselves Christians sinned grievously in promoting that.
Just the last 3 hours after days of rallies and protests, one of the most heated abortion debates in Louisiana ground to a halt.
The debate got heated this evening at the Capitol as lawmakers debated the bill that could charge people for getting an abortion with murder. But in the end, lawmakers voted to strip away all of the most controversial language from that bill, and then they tabled it without a vote.
So would you say it's fair to say that that letter, signed by over 70 plus pro-life leaders in the country, killed HB 813?
They went into the House chambers to vote with that letter in hand, knowing that the National Right to Life Committee and over 70 pro-life organizations across America were urging them not to pass that bill banning abortion.
But apparently, even after the Supreme Court overturned Roe, pro-life leaders and organizations are still actively opposing abolition bills, just like Jeff had said.
I sat down in Missouri for a bill of equal protection to advocate for the preborn, sat before the legislators, and sitting next to me was the leadership of the pro-life establishment in the state of Missouri, arguing against a bill that, in principle, she should completely agree with.
Right.
It's simple. What's in the womb is human from fertilization. All humans deserve equal protection under the law. She would agree with that when she's raising funds, but she shut it down because of the single issue that will keep abortion legal for good.
For the record, Susan Klein, representing Missouri Right to Life. I'm going on record in opposition to the prosecution of women.
The pro-life lobby in Missouri opposed equal protection, and the pro-life politicians followed suit.
House Majority Leader John Patterson, who's poised to become Speaker of the House in 2025, said this bill does not align with the party's platform. He told me, quote, "These bills do not represent the mainstream thinking of Missourians or Republicans in the General Assembly. They are not pro-life."
After the pro-life movement lobbied against it, the Missouri Equal Protection Bill died. And I'm finding these are not isolated incidents.
I'm Rob Harris. I'm a South Carolina State Rep for District 36 at Spartanburg area in South Carolina, and I'm a married, 10 children, registered nurse for almost 30 years. I'm a Christian. I take my Christian values right down to my desk in the State House legislature every day. I have a duty, Proverbs 24:11 and 12 says we have to, if you're not willing to try to rescue those who are about to perish, God knows that. He's going to hold you accountable for that.
You introduced a very controversial bill in your state this year. Can you tell me about that bill and what happened?
So it was a bill of equal protection. It was the first bill as a freshman legislator that I ever filed. It's the South Carolina Prenatal Human Protection Act of 2023. It doesn't change anything about our criminal code, right? That's the beauty of it and the simplicity of it. It's just getting people to say, yeah, that is murder.
That new bill would criminalize abortion as homicide, meaning women who undergo the procedure here in South Carolina could face a death sentence.
The pro-life people, some of them have very good intentions, but some of them just don't want to provide equal justice.
What we've got over here is it's just a rogue thing that's going on over there. It's not going to have support in the House, I suspect. It certainly wouldn't have support over here. I mean, there's no way South Carolina's going to do that.
The establishment, in fact, the Speaker of the House in South Carolina, Merle Smith, told the local news channel, quote, "They have no intention of letting my bill out of committee."
Yet another bill killed by pro-life politicians? This is almost unbelievable. So your House representative puts forward an abolition bill. What happens then?
So she gets to work on her abolition bill as soon as she is elected. House Bill 300, our abolition bill. Emily Callaway's bill did have a lot of support initially before the filing process.
Okay.
It was supported by Ken Ham at the Creation Museum. He had an informational meeting, invited pastors, and there was a lot leading up to that. Abolitionism was growing in the state of Kentucky. The Kentucky Right to Life comes out opposing the bill. They email everyone on their list, and they say that the woman should never face criminal penalties for an abortion, which is not surprising considering that Kentucky Right to Life was a signer of the now infamous National Right to Life open letter.
So what happened with those bills?
After the Kentucky Right to Life came out with their email, it killed any traction that we were getting for our abolition bill.
State after state after state. More of the same from the pro-life organizations. They oppose abolition bills, and the Republican legislators follow their lead. I discovered that to date, pro-life groups have orchestrated the killing of 35 abolition bills filed in 14 Republican-controlled states. 11 of those bills were even killed after Roe v. Wade was overturned. So according to this letter signed by 77 pro-life organizations that everyone keeps talking about, the reason they keep killing these bills is because they say that all women who get abortions are victims.
Women are victims of abortion, whether they claim that for themselves or not.
But are all women victims? From what I have seen outside abortion clinics, I'm not so sure.
I don't know. It's probably the babies that are in the womb being murdered. They're probably screaming
I took all the
too.
babies out of my womb.
I know you murdered them.
Yeah, I did, and I'll do it.
I know you will.
In the next episode of Abortion Free.
Well, we were proud to sign on to that letter, and I've had to defend it.
Have you murdered a baby? 2.
Because I didn't want a child. That's why.
What happens whenever you don't treat it as homicide, when you don't treat it as murder, they do it thinking it must not actually be murder.
If you're ever at an abortion mill, those young ladies know exactly what they're doing.
They were walking in on their own 2 feet. No one was dragging them in the door.
So I guess how do you determine, how do we know who's a victim and who's not?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Coercion's real in abortion, and many women are choosing abortion oftentimes because of that coercion.
At the root of women's problem that abortion is a symptom of is sin.
God forbid that we would give women an excuse to not have her turn to Christ. And that's what we're doing.
Well, she's a victim. Why does she need repentance?
Exactly. That's what we're doing when we say she's a second victim.